Mic check, 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 check. All right, we're good. All right, let's get this going. Get this going. Let's talk about it. Episode 5. Here we are. Shout out to y'all YouTube viewership. Whew, man, it was a good week. Not gonna lie, first week of 2019 hit it off on a good note. Just gonna do a little bit of a weekend recap, a little bit of sports talk, and then we're gonna try something new. Just more of a little philosophical session at the end. As you guys have probably noticed, last couple of weeks I haven't had guests. Like I said, a lot of my friends are, like I said, they're busy. They have their own lives. The holiday season's over, so hopefully we're going to have a couple of people on. I do have somebody slated in for next Saturday, so keep an eye out for that. Let's get right into it. As per the usual, some friends of mine over on Spotify, Matt and Murph, a couple of good guys. They want to talk everything. If you like baseball, they talk everything baseball, just from a couple of young guys. Their last episode was pretty good. Definitely go check them out on Spotify. It's called Inside the Park. So shout out to the Inside the Park podcast over on Spotify. Also, New Year's is here. If you're a resolution person, me personally, I'm not. But if you're a resolution person and you want to lose a little bit of weight, get in shape, trust me, I understand. Signal 5 CrossFit, Greater Harrisburg area. They're a great place to look out. That is my gym. They're my friends. They're my family. I love working out there. Great people. And definitely a good place to check out for your New Year's resolution. Follow me on Instagram at Jake Stout, all lowercase, all one word. And feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I definitely am going to be looking forward to this one. We're going to try to keep it a little bit shorter than last week's episode. But, let's get into it. So, wrapping up last week, or this last weekend, it's Sunday when this will probably be coming out late Sunday. So, maybe Monday, depending on... Alright, anyway, regardless of the point. So Clemson beat Notre Dame. It was a rout. We already talked about that last week. The big news, though, is the B samples of the 3 suspended Clemson players came back for something that I didn't expect. I've talked in episodes before with Austin and some other people. I'm not a fan of anybody that uses steroids, but Ostarine was found in the B samples of all 3 players, which is a performance-enhancing drug. It is a metabolite, much like something similar to what the John Jones situation was. He got popped because of a metabolite. Same situation here. It was a very, very trace amount. And then, again, I think there's something that needs to be done, and I'm only saying this because this has been happening a lot as of late, but I think there needs to be a list of NCAA regulatory approved things to take, because if you look at Dexter Lawrence and you look at the 2 other Clemson players that were suspended, none of them are juicing, because you can just 90% of the time you can tell when somebody's juicing. 90%. There's 10% that you just can't. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna say they weren't intentionally juicing, but with how small the traces were on the B sample from all of my from my basic investigation off of other people's work, I don't think any of them were intentionally cheating. So what I'm thinking is, and you can, fact check me on this if you want, and I checked my supplements earlier. Almost everything is made in China, and I'm willing to bet that the warehouses where most of these supplements are made, whether it be creatine, protein, all of that stuff, it's being made in a factory where there's other illegal substances being made. I can't, there is no hard evidence to that, but when you look at GNC supplements and you look at how much extra trash is in them, and then when you test them against other stuff, there's stuff in there that shouldn't be in there. It happens. So if I had to guess, and again, pure speculation here, Dexter Lawrence and the two other individuals that got popped for the ban, or for the banned substance, probably just took a protein shake, probably something low quality, over the counter. They're traveling, they're nowhere near home, so probably just stopped at a GNC, got a couple of big buckets of protein powder, and it had something in it. Again, I'm just speculating, but this has happened. This has happened with the John Jones situation. This has happened with several other college players this season. So I think, much like what Nowitzki, I believe his name is Steve Nowitzki or something like that. Anyway, he's the UFC's head of banned substances. He's the anti-doping guy for the UFC. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he said this, and I'm just going to echo his sentiments, is that for all of these major governing bodies that have to drug test these athletes, whether it be at the college level, pro level, Olympic level, UFC, there needs to be one baseline of, okay, this is what you're allowed to take. Anything else is going to be considered a banned substance, whether it has a banned substance in it or not. You know what I mean? There needs to be a collective group of these supplement companies saying, okay, listen, our product is 1,000% sure, tested and approved for consumption by NCAA athletes, pro athletes, UFC athletes, Olympic athletes. Because that's clearly not the case. Everybody is getting popped for doping left and right, whether it be, like I said, Dexter Lawrence and the Clemson guys, whether it be John Jones. It doesn't matter. People are taking all of these different supplements because of what they're advertised to do. And, because, you go get whey protein, one of the first things it says on there is 100% whatever, increases muscle growth. Everyone wants to have more muscle, especially when you're a football player. You know what I mean? You have to be strong because football is a collision sport. Everyone's like, no, football is a contact sport. No, basketball is a contact sport. Guys get, smacked, touched, this, that, blah, blah, blah. That's contact. Football is a collision sport. Every week that I go to practice and I come home, I feel like I got hit. I feel like I've been in a car crash. Not just because I'm hitting people, but because I'm getting hit. You know what I mean? So extra muscle is essentially nothing more than extra padding under your pads. So, with that being said, I do think, and like I said, I'm sure a lot of people are going to echo my sentiments and echo Mr. Nowitzki's sentiments, is that there needs to be a baseline, okay, this is acceptable. And then we'll go into all the extracurricular junk, T replacement, all that stuff. I know the UFC had issues with that before. So, yeah, I think that needs to be done sooner, much, much sooner rather than later, strictly on the premise that it's only going to get worse. You know what I mean? Because when you're asking these kids to travel, this and that, you know what I mean? I don't know about you guys, but when I travel, I always forget something. 90% of the time it's just a phone charger, and I always keep an extra one in my car, so it's not the biggest deal. But, if I had to guess, I mean, and again, completely speculating here, I would have guessed that Dexter Lawrence and the other two guys were in a rush to packed, got on the plane to go to, Cotton Bowl was in Texas, got to Texas, and we're like, alright, shit, I forgot my protein powder, let's go down to the local GNC. You know what I mean? Completely honest, with no intention of cheating, mistake. You know what I mean? And I don't think that should affect Dexter Lawrence's draft stock. I don't think that should hurt the other two players' spots at Clemson, because I think Clemson understands what's going on. So, with that being said, I think that's going to be a major talking point in the future for the NCAA, is getting a baseline set up. But I think it should be all sports across the board, not just the NCAA. So, that kind of transitions me into national championship, Clemson, Alabama. We called it. Shout out to Oklahoma, though. They put up a good fight. But, unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Alabama is doing Alabama things. Clemson's doing Clemson things. See, and the great thing is these two teams complement each other. very well because I've heard it talked about. David Pollack, Joel Klatt, a lot of the big time college football analysts have said that Alabama's secondary is their weakness, where Clemson's receiving core is their strength. And I'm inclined to agree. I'm definitely inclined to agree. I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be a shootout. I'm thinking it's going to be like a 32-35 game. I'm thinking it's going to come down to a field goal. Somebody's life's going to get made. One of these kickers are going to have a great reputation if they win this game on a field goal. But yeah, I mean, Alabama runs the ball really, really well. Clemson has a pretty good run defense, so it'll be interesting to see how the front four, I mean, even with Dexter Lawrence out, they played really well against Notre Dame's O-line, which is pretty good itself. So I just want to see how Clemson's front four handles themselves, as well as the linebacking core. And then Clemson safeties, I hate to say it, but it's kind of been our Achilles heel all year, much like Alabama. You know what I mean? Their secondary isn't the greatest. Tua is gonna throw the ball, doing Alabama gonna do Alabama things. And Trevor Lawrence is gonna air it out. He had 347 yards and 3 touchdowns against Notre Dame, so it is what it is. But I think that it's gonna be I think it's going to be a good game Monday night. Unfortunately, I have to be at work. Unfortunately, I don't get a chance to watch the game. So, yeah, very unfortunate, but I will probably be having my SportsCenter app up to date and tracking the game. Probably do like the game cast. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. Like I said, it's gonna be mid-30 points wise. I think defense is just not going to show up, or it's going to be a mid-tier scoring game. I didn't check the gambling line on it strictly because A, I don't gamble, but B, I mean, Alabama's the favorite going in, so it's not really that big of a deal. So, in NFL news, the Cowboys won. Just not a Cowboys fan. Cowboys won 24-22. Unfortunately, the Seahawks did get exposed a little bit. I watched the highlights. That O-line isn't the greatest. As much as I love Russell Wilson, I think he put the team on his back, but I think he benefited from, outside of the LA Rams, having a really shitty division. Wait, who's in their division? They have San Francisco and Arizona, which there's 4 wins just handed to you right there. And I'm pretty sure yeah. Alright, so anyway, fact check me on that in the comments, please. Yeah, it's one of those things that, Russell Wilson put the team on his back. He probably shouldn't have had as good a season he had. Shout out to him. He was actually my front runner for MVP as of a couple of weeks ago. And, of course, nobody's talking about him because of the seasons that everybody else is having. But you have to look at the talent around him. Russell Wilson really doesn't have anybody great to throw to outside of Doug Baldwin. You kind of have to, if you take Russell Wilson out of that equation, that's a 2 to 3 win team tops, in my opinion. Don't kill me for that, but, Seahawks, and honestly, I like the Seahawks as an organization, but you guys just, I'm pretty sure Pete Carroll got extended, so good luck. But I do like the way Pete Carroll coaches. I like Russell Wilson as an athlete. Rashad Penny, when you guys drafted him, I think you reached, but I do like Rashad Penny as a player. So, like I said, I like a few of your players, but it's one of those things that, life goes on. Better luck next year. Colts beat the Texans. That was a surprise. Houston was kind of my X factor, because you don't really know what that team's capable of. Some days they're great, some days they're not. It was not a good day. 21-7 final score. I love Deshaun Watson. Clemson represent. But at the end of the day, nobody wants to see the Colts right now. That defense, for whatever reason, it works. I don't know how. Outside of Darius Leonard, I couldn't name you one guy on that defense. And it's wild how good they actually are. So, regardless of the point, yeah, that's was a bit of a shock. But, life goes on. So, right now, because it's about 3 o'clock. Who's playing right now? Somebody's playing right now. Okay, the Chargers are beating Baltimore. It's the third quarter. It's 12-3 Chargers. The Chargers are a problem. They're 12-4. They're, in my opinion, now that Houston's not there, they're the X factor or the wild card, whatever you want to call it, to get to the Super Bowl, just because that team is silently good. They've played on the road all year. They don't have a home stadium. They are more than happy to come into your house and spoil everything for you. They just don't care. You know, I mean, you're looking at Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, who got Rookie of the Year from Derwin James, Desmond King. They have great players on that defense, and of course the offense led by Phillip Rivers and his platoon of children. Shout out to Phillip Rivers, man. But yeah, I like the Chargers. They're hot right now. Like I said, they're up 12-3 in the third, so I'm not gonna be super mad at that. Also, the other game later today, Eagles-Bears. The legend of Big Dick Nick is back. You know, as a Steelers fan and my team's been eliminated, I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight. I like the Bears because I'm a huge Khalil Mack fan, but at the end of the day, there's something about the Eagles, man. They're like the Colts. Like, the Colts are one of those teams that, like, I don't know how they're making it work, but they're making it work. And Nick Foles, I don't know how he does it with that Eagles team, but he just does it. It's ridiculous. But regardless of the point, I do think at the end of the day, it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be 21-28. Could be, 35-28. I think it'll be a touchdown game in favor of the Eagles. You know, as a Steelers fan, you got to represent PA before you do anything else. Contrary to my gut feeling, which says that the Bears are just going to run the ball down their throat, and the Eagles really aren't going to be able to do too much about it. So, I think that at the end of the day, the games next week obviously are going to mean a lot more. But I still think Saints, Chiefs, and Rams are the three front runners, but the Chargers, like I said, are a problem, and I don't think the Cowboys get out of the next round of the playoffs myself, and again, Cowboys bias, Cowboys hate, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So, other non-sports related news, the government is still shut down. President Trump just ran up to Camp David while the government shut down, and one thing I gotta say is while the government shut down, I don't think that they should be taking taxes out of our paycheck. I understand the IRS is a third party, but like, come on now, you know what I mean? Like, all this over a wall, you know what I mean? Let's be adults here and have a conversation instead of saying, no, you're a poopy head, no, you're a poopy head, no, you're a poopy head. Well, I'm not gonna have this conversation then. No, sit down as adults, have a conversation, and it's one of those things that I guess you can kind of say that at the end of it, I'm trying to think of I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. So, alright, so the analogy that I use is if you take a broomstick, right, and you hot glue two pool balls to the end of the stick and spin it in the perfect center, the faster you spin it, the more the pool balls are going to pull away from each other, and then it'll eventually break the stick. That's kind of what's happening in today's political realm, because for all the radical lefts, there's equal or more radical rights, and then there's equal or more radical lefts just because those people on the right said that they were more radical. And it's one of those things that this country is slowly and surely pulling itself apart. It's very unfortunate, and there's a lot of conversations that need to be had on all levels, you know what I mean, between our generation, millennials, with the generation that came just before us, and then we have to have conversations with all of the, I don't want to call them elderly or geriatrics, but we have to have conversations with the elder statesmen that are running things right now, because I think at the end of the day, A, they don't respect the youth, you know what I mean, they just think we're all idiots, and B, I think at the end of the day, more times out of not, it's a there's a communication gap. We speak, millennials speak in a very blunt, this, that, the third, this is what it is, this is what it isn't. And a lot of millennials, like when I've watched, YouTube videos on people going to political rallies and, the 20-somethings get up and ask questions and stuff, they're always very, very blunt questions. They're always, well, what are you going to do about this? And I'm not saying that any of that's a problem, because being blunt has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. And the fact that our generation has zero experience politicking with the older generation, we're walking into their arena thinking that we understand what's going on when we have no idea, and a lot of young people are so far out of depth when they have political conversations that's the reason that the elder generation thinks that we look like idiots. It is what it is. So at the end of the day, keeping things nice and simple. Like I said, let's educate yourself and have conversations at the end of the day, because at some point there's going to be a power shift. There has to be, because there's entirely too many 70, 80, and 90 somethings that have the power now. They're not, and as morbid as it's going to sound, politicians aren't going to live forever. It is what it is, So at the end of the day, there's going to be one of those things that, they're going to have to pass the torch eventually, whether it be rather reluctantly. But it's going to have to happen. And I think instead of having it be a complete, here, let's nuke it and then give it to the young kids state of mind, which I'm pretty sure is what they're all thinking right about now. Let's make it a graceful transition. I don't see a reason why you can't go and get educated young people and have them have these conversations. Because at the end of it, how much are they really losing by having, young people participate in politics? They're not. You know what I mean? I mean, it's going to hurt a lot of the big companies and this, that, and the third, because, big companies are running politicians. It is what it is. We have to accept that now. But at the end of it, there's no reason that torch can't be passed down to younger politicians. Whether it be, a 30-something, a 40-something, it would just be more, it would be, I was about to say more better. it would be a better look for the younger generation to at least have some representation. That way we don't feel we're as alone, or we don't feel like we're talking to that wall as much, you know what I mean? Because I feel like any issues that young people have that get taken to politicians' offices, and they get brought up in press conferences with the president, this, that, and the third, I just feel like it falls on deaf ears. So again, we kind of have to waylay what we have into a somewhat, I want to say, somewhat of a leverageable position. Shit. Alright, so rewind this. We have to leverage our knowledge and our capabilities of what we have now into a position to where we can negotiate with, the bureaucracy at hand. Because at the end of the day, we can't do all of this by ourselves. We need the elder statesmen to kind of show us the ropes. And it is kind of happening, but it isn't at the same time. You know what I mean? There's certain people that are, certain people that aren't. But at the end of it, it's one of those things that, again, the torch has to be passed at some point, and I think politically it's going to be rather interesting to see where things go, at least for the next couple of years. Which kind of transitions me into my philosophical rant, I guess you can call it, for the day, is the privilege of some people. We'll call it that. I don't want to say it's exclusively white privilege, because it's not. I mean, a lot of it is, but it's not. So, it's one of those things that, like I said, I guess we're just going to kind of dive into privilege. So, one thing that I always try to pay attention to is, people on my timeline, and But yeah, so one thing like I said, I always pay attention to is people on my timeline, and I have a lot of my friends are on my timeline, so we're gonna keep this relatively nameless. Um, One thing that I notice, on the topic of privilege, is that I understand, again, the holiday season's just over and everything, but there's a lot of people that I see on my timeline that are always talking about, they're struggling, this, that, the third, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, I get it. We all struggle with shit. So it's cool, whether it be paying bills, whether it be, mental health, whether it be family issues, what have you. But the people on my timeline, and again, we're gonna keep this relatively nameless. Certain female friend of mine, mom's a doctor, dad's a doctor. I'm pretty sure dad's a doctor too. Actually, now that I think about it, has been fed a silver spoon her whole life, and hands down on my timeline, at least once a day, I hear about how the struggle's real. Okay, so now I don't want to completely discredit, her social. I don't want to correlate her social status with the struggle that she's going through, because it could very much be something psychological. It could very much be a lot of different things. At the end of the damn day, a lot of people would kill to be in her position, and I think, with her being in college and she's going to be graduating soon and everything, she's pretty much been handed a college education. We're going to be completely honest about it. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. A lot of people would kill for the opportunity that she has, but it's one of those things that, you have to pay attention to the way that you look to other people, because, and I'm gonna say this very bluntly, but I don't mean it disrespectfully, is you look like a complete and total bitch. Whether you're a man or a woman, if I can go on your timeline and see that, your parents got you a car for your 16th birthday, this, that, the third, you're always going places, you're always doing wild shit, like shit that everybody in the world knows costs a hell of a lot of money, and you're just out there like, oh, like the struggle is real, blah, 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 like I can't believe I have this, whatever. If I can go back and document that shit, your struggle is no longer validated in my eyes. Again, strictly my opinion, unpopular opinion for some, but you can't sit here and say the struggle is real if there's you know what I mean, if there's a prerequisite of things that you just don't have to worry about. You know what I mean? Like, perfect example, if you're worried about, like, where your next meal's coming, yeah, the struggle's real. If you have to worry about, paying all your bills on time, then yeah, the struggle is real. If you have to worry about, somebody coming to repo in your car, yeah, the struggle is real. But at the end of the day, if you're worried about getting an A on an exam in a class you already have an A in, and you're freaking out on whether it be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, about how unfair this teacher's, teaching style is, this, that, and the third, your struggle is no longer valid. Because at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Is that test going to dictate whether you eat that night? Is that test going to dictate whether, you have a car to go drive to class? Is that going to dictate whether your car has gas in it? No. It's bullshit. You know what I mean? Everyone always wants to, say this, that, the third about, struggle this, struggle that, struggle this. Actually struggling and thinking you're actually struggling at the end of the day, completely different ball games. Now, I'm going to tether this off with, I myself, when I say all the struggle is real, it's more in the vein of finances. For me, it's just, I worry about getting some of my bills paid on time. Who doesn't? Who as an adult doesn't? It's cool. But I don't harp on it. But it's one of those things that, and I'm sure a lot of people out there have seen it. It's the people that scream the struggle, this, that, the third, blah, 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 but A, aren't doing anything about it, and B, or, no, not and B, or B, their struggle is just invalid. You know what I mean? Like, if your parents are taking care of everything for you and you only have to, work a job, minimum wage, at least 20 hours a week, that don't mean shit to somebody that's actually, you know, worrying about where their next meal's coming from. You know what I mean? Like, and it's one of those things again, and like, and I talked about it for my New Year, or for my year in review podcast, was, you know, leaving behind toxic people. These are one of the kinds of toxic people that I run into oh so often. You know, oh, the struggle is real, this, blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm hearing you, but it's not validated. You know what I mean? And I'm not, you know, any authority to say what is struggling with something and what isn't. I'm not any authority into saying any of that, but I'm just saying that I live a fair amount of my time especially when I'm in college, because I'm going back to classes next week. A fair amount of people, and I live in this realm myself, they kind of live in the court of public opinion. And the court of public opinion, at least with the people that I surround myself with, you know, because that's my, so to speak, that's my bubble. We don't validate people's struggles if you're not really going through it. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things like, and I'm not trying to sound sexist. I'm not trying to say women do it more than men, but on my timeline, I see more women doing it than men. Because, and again, call it, you know, society's, you know, what do they call it? Toxically masculine, you know, ideals. But men don't complain. Or at least on my timeline, I don't see men complaining about shit as much. You know, because at the end of the day, there's always something we want to do about it. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a bill that I know I can't get paid, I'm looking for side jobs to help friends out with. I'm looking for any other way that I can make it, you know, a little bit of extra cash, you know, to go do what I got to do. It is what it is, you know what I mean? Where, again, on the timeline, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I just see a lot of women just complaining and, oh, the struggle's real, this is that. Don't say the struggle is real when you're posting pictures from out of the country when your parents paid for your vacation. You know what I mean? Like, that, you're literally being the biggest hypocrite on the planet. Now, if you're up front and you say you're a hypocrite and you are self-aware enough to acknowledge that, absolutely. You know what I mean? Sit there and say the struggle's real all day, because it's already going in one ear and out the other. At least now we're both self-aware. You know what I mean? So, just something for you guys to take with you. Just be very cognizant about how you look to other people, because if you have somebody that you're really close to, you know what I mean, a lot of my friends, they check in on me every once in a while, just, and vice versa, you know, just regular good friend shit. And, you know what I mean, if you see somebody that's really, really going through something and they're explaining what's going on social media, A, tell them to take that shit off of social media, because that's a bad look, and B, be there for them in the physical world. Don't just say, oh, I'm here for you on Facebook, you can reach out whenever you want, because 9 out of 10 times when people are really going through shit, they just either A, want to be left alone, or they feel alone and they don't want to reach out. So keep your eyes open, stay vigilant, but also, you know, be cognizant of how you look to other people, and be cognizant of what you're doing and what you're saying and what goes on social media and what doesn't, and blah blah blah. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I mean, like I said, I just wanted to kind of have like a little philosophical rant, so to speak. So I think next to that, everything else is good. Let me see, we covered all the notes, covered everything. So, alright, we're out. Let's talk about it. Episode 5.